Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast, a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I haven't talked about PDC much, and I regret that. It's not that they're not on my mind. I'm married to a PDCer, and we formed the SciOta group. She's from Sci, and I'm from IOTA. And I guess when I was talking to Kenny Welkup, who's the executive director of Phi Delta Chi, recently, I'd kind of forgotten about this, and I wanted to read it to you just as a reminder, because I guess it's been really tough these last couple of weeks. I'm getting emails from students who are not sure what they're going to do. The first wave has just hit, and we're in about the last 5 days here of students basically finding out that they didn't get an interview, or they have so few interviews that their likelihood of securing a residency is poor. And that in just a month's time, or a month in a couple of weeks, so March 19th, another 2,612 students will find out. Well, that includes PGY2, so students and young pharmacists will find out that they have also not matched. And I think doing this, the AAAE campaign, it lends to some difficulty because it's so broad. So what I wanted to do was pick a day for myself, and you're welcome to join me on this day, but to pick match day as the day that I'm going to really embrace the AAAE campaign, and you guys know what that means. And I'll read the purpose again. So as active brothers pass to alumni status, they owe to this fraternity their support and their advice. Our common bond is never severed, and our oaths and obligations persist. So long as each of us is a true brother, we are brothers for life. And obviously you do want to pay your dues and so forth. And I now picked January 1st as the day to do that. Which is probably bad tax-wise. I should probably do it on December 31st. But I think that if there was ever a day in a pharmacy student's life that truly epitomizes the day that they're going to need us as alumni, it's going to be March 19th, 2021. I think you guys know what's going on with the job market. I think you guys are pretty clear that the residency applications continue to rise. While admissions to pharmacy schools have gone down about, applicants are down around 7 or 8% as of January, I think. But these reductions will not really hit for another couple of years in terms of graduation and affecting the job market in any way. But to kind of take yourself back to when you were maybe 23, 24, and now many of you were like me, where we spent, I spent $4,000 a year on tuition, and that was only because they doubled it. If I'd gotten to pharmacy school a year earlier, I would have spent $2,000 a year on tuition to get my bachelor's. And these young students, on average, are going to graduate with $180,000 in debt. And yes, I get there's some going on with the politics at the White House and so forth, that they're going to, stave off some of that, interest and all that stuff. But ultimately, they're going to have to pay it back, and they're going to need a job to do it. And many of them were hoping for residency, and right now it's not happening for them. So I would encourage that March 19th for me is going to be kind of my day. I already paid my dues, so if you don't want to do anything, but the one thing that can help your particular chapter is to simply pay your dues, and then that helps with the scholarships at the chapter. But what I wanted to talk about are some things that I'm going to be providing free as March 19th comes along. Some of these things are already available. Some of these things will be available on the day. So let's start with the big three. Over the last 3 years, I've been helping students with letters of intent, CVs to some extent, and their interviews. But this was the first year I really put it all together as a number of courses. I thought about calling this Residency School, but I really like Residency Planner better. It was previously named ResidencyHelp.com because that's what I was doing. In December, I was helping a lot of students who maybe didn't get the support they had hoped for, and I was providing that writing support, or maybe they didn't want to ask for it. Maybe they didn't want to, maybe they felt embarrassed to do that in front of their own professors and so forth. But I have 3 courses that I provide, and one of them I want to give you guys free access to right now. So there's the Checkbox CV and Resume Planner with video and audio guides. This is the one I'm working on right now. And it's to, as I roll into next year, I'll explain more about what I'm doing with this. But for this year, if you haven't gotten an interview, I think the first step is actually to write your CV as if you were a P1 or P2. And to just say, okay, well, if I could do this over again, knowing what I know now about where I applied to and how I applied, and most people are not getting interviews because they either, they went to all academic medical centers in terms of their applications, or they maybe only applied to 4 or 5 because they just couldn't afford to apply to any more schools. And, I can go into, I'm not going to go into the amount of money that they spent on the tuition, that it's kind of crazy that a couple of $100 would prevent them from earning some $50,000 to $60,000 next year, or whatever their residency salary would be. So the first thing is to kind of look at the CV and say, okay, well, let me back this up. And let me say, okay, well, if I could do it all over again, does my CV now that I'm presenting match what I would do if I could do it all over again? And I bet it wouldn't. Because a lot of the times when you get no interviews, it's actually feedback that what you are saying you want to be, and maybe your letter of intent or how you present yourself to them, is not in accordance with what your CV shows. So there's an expression that if you want to see what people care about, see what they spend their money on. And if you want to see what I care about, it's my daughter's confidence, especially in sports. And the amount of money that we put into gymnastics, basketball, and soccer is ridiculous. But and this is not a Division I path hoping for all tuition scholarship. It's not that at all. It's actually just, I think, to enjoy it and to enjoy the sport. You're going to need to do it at a level and with training that can meet you at that level. And so, yeah, I put a lot of money into it. And what I'm saying is that if you look now at your CV and you look at what you would have done and what you've done in terms of your APPEs, and some of those are not in your control, I get it. COVID's just absolutely destroyed some routes to acute care, residency, and things like that. But why don't you go back and check? And so you can get into this course free. You just click on it, and then you put in the coupon Brothers for Life, and then just after Brothers for Life, just put in the 4 digits of the year we were founded. Okay, so everyone knows what that is. So again, Brothers for Life, all caps, and then those 4 numbers, the year we were founded, and you can get into the Checkbox CV and Resume Planner free. The second thing I want to talk about is what I've been doing with students. I've helped over 160 students, so 2% of the entire group that is applying to residency this year, I have helped with letters of intent and or interviews. And what I keep seeing over and over again is a fear of being innovative, a fear of standing out when that's exactly what you need to do. There's a great audiobook I was listening to that basically, said it in one sentence. We remember people by what's strange about them or what's different about them. And what many people are trying to do is trying not to be strange, not trying to stand out, and not trying to have something that makes them look bad, when the exact opposite is what you need to do, because that's the thing that people latch on to. I work out every day. I go to CrossFit. I run a lot. I'm a marathoner. I got triplet daughters. Latch on to whatever you want. There's something in there that you could remember about me. And you want to do the same thing. And that's what I've tried to do with the letter of intent, is not only match their offerings to your skills, but what is it that's in your CV or resume that really stands out and says, wow, this person's really neat. I'd really like to meet him and interview him. And then the actual interview, when you're preparing those answers, you may be preparing yourself for failure, because if you prepare them in the right way, it's going to be very visual. Your answers should be very visual, and your answers should be they should make sense. They should be very organized. If they're not, then you come off as disorganized, and you come off as not memorable. What you're really fighting for in the interview is a ranking. And generally, sites will rank against the class. So if you had like 4 people you were interviewing with, they'll probably rank you 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I think what's going to happen is at some point they'll go, okay, well, let's get all the 1s, let's get all the 2s and the 3s and the 4s. And it's near impossible to remember everybody, but they'll remember the top 10 and bottom 10%. And in general, that's all they're going to need in terms of rankings. So what you're really fighting for is how to get the points that you need to get there and so forth. Now, I'm working this out later where a portion of the courses, if you're Phi Delta Chi, is going to go back to Phi Delta Chi. This is something I should have done a long time ago. But I just want to let you know I have the big 3 available, and you can get into Checkbox CV and Resume Planner free now. Let me talk a little bit about this one first. So what makes your CV or resume stand out? When you're doing a CV or resume, the big take home, or the big take home I want to give you with this one is you have to make a new CV for each site when you're applying to a job. When you're applying to a residency, you only have to change it if you're doing the dual acute care ambulatory care, where the ambulatory care CV and the acute care CV are not going to be the same thing. But when you talk about jobs, you really need to stand out by using the keywords, and I talk about it a little bit later, that are really what they're looking for. And they put those keywords in there for a reason, because they want, if they need leadership, they need a manager. If they need attention to detail, well, that's who they want. If they need innovation, they need that as well. Okay. The next one, the letter of intent. I've put a couple things in here, but the big thing is the letter of intent should really be your vision. Now, how do you plan to spend the next year, and what do you really want to be doing? Do you want to be working with kids? Do you want to work with geriatrics? Do you want to work with psych? Are you thinking acute care? To some extent, PGY1's a little disappointing because it is so broad and you have so many different things that you're working on. I've heard over and over again, PGY2 is harder but easier. And what they mean is the stuff that they do is at a higher level, but they're more interested in it. And many times you have to go through something you don't like to do to get to something you do like to do. But I talk about how you use the letter of intent to build your residency vision. And that's a free preview as well. And then there's also, if you scroll further down, videos on the presentation. What I did was I took some video of some students who were just really top students, and they presented their posters at ASHP. And they did it in 3 minutes. And you can see exactly what it takes to make a clinical presentation from those 3 minutes. They knew everything about their poster. They knew from the beginning how the research was set up, what the results were. They were excited about it. It was something they were passionate about. And all of those things are things you want to see. But Purdue's a great pharmacy school, so we expect that from them anyway. And then we go on to Rockstar Residency Interview Prep and Support. This is what I'm working with now. I'm working with just a couple handfuls of students in terms of one-on-one help with their actual interviews. And then I do provide email support. So it's not just, okay, here's the 3 hours worth of content on getting the points and improving your ranking on the interview prep and support, but also I provide email support. So if you have a question about something like, hey, they asked me to do this. I've never done that before. How do I do that? And I'm like, well, this is what other people have done. Because I have seen almost 200 people just this residency season. And then, it goes into almost 1,000 if we go back many, many years. So I can provide that kind of support to have somebody to email. Maybe you already have somebody at your College of Pharmacy, but some don't. And then on the day, on the 19th, this book will be available free. It says it's free because it's Kindle Unlimited. It'd be $10 if you bought it. But it's called Crushing the Phase 2 Pharmacy Residency Match, Proven Tactics to Earn a Clinical Pharmacist Training Position. And one story I love that's in here is Key Gales from Drake University, who matched in Phase 2 of the PGY1, but he also matched in Phase 2 of the PGY2, which is just awesome. That the chances of doing that are so infinitesimal. It's just amazing that he did it. But he's the kind of person that he learns so quickly from something, and he has a background in music, so that kind of liberal arts mind, that he can adjust and make those pivots and moves and things like that. And he's just a really smart guy. And he's just such a laid back guy, but he was like PICOA champion, which means that he had the highest score of the PICOA exam or whatever. But to talk to him, you wouldn't think anything like that, but he's actually just a great mind and just a great guy. But this will be available free, and then the audiobook, if you want to email me on the day, maybe make a note just in case, but tonythepharmacist@gmail.com. I'll have a limited number of audiobook codes that I can give away for it, because obviously reading a book isn't the first thing on your mind as you're unfortunately going through one of the worst days of your life probably. So just to kind of reiterate everything, I really, kind of want to embrace the, AAAE campaign, which is that as an alumnus, I should be giving back. But what I want to do is define that day for myself as match day, because obviously I have so much in residency going on. I do pay my dues. I paid them in January. And Checkbox CV and Resume Planner is there's a coupon code that you can use, Brothers for Life, all caps, all one word, followed by the 4 numbers of the year of our founding. Will get you this course for free. It doesn't get you the free grammar syntax makeover. That would be something extra, but you can email me if you got questions and stuff like that, tonythepharmacist@gmail.com. And then if you do want to work one-on-one with me as you work into Phase 2, Extreme LOI Makeover, and then Rockstar Residency Interview Prep and Support, my turnaround is usually pretty quick. We're not going to have spring break this year, so it might be a little bit tougher, but usually 24, 48 hours at the most, I can turn around an editing on a letter of intent, and then we'll have to kind of talk about the interview if you want to do a one-on-one mock interview with me, but we can certainly try to set that up. So anyway, sometimes it's just easiest. Email me, tonythepharmacist@gmail.com, or reach out to me on Facebook via Messenger. That seems to be a way a lot of people like to get a hold of me and talk to me. But I truly believe in the campaign, and I truly believe that we as alumni have an opportunity, and maybe setting a day for myself is a better way to do it. And I would end this podcast on the number, but unfortunately the number of seconds in a minute doesn't go to that number. So we'll just put it on what the number would have been if you had to add those extra seconds on there.